Are you planning a trip to El Salvador? I recently got back from the country and oh man, I had an incredible time. I traveled for 10 days and while I was planning my trip, I found it difficult to find good information on the country for backpackers or Americans like me that wanted to vacation there. The main reason I wanted to check out El Salvador was because I'm adopted from there. I was adopted at the age of 1 and raised in the United States by a white family. As I've gotten older, I've become more curious about my roots. I started to wonder what the country would be like. I even started to think more about my birth mother. I made a trip back to El Salvador to experience the culture and also to get in contact with my birth mother. I didn't have very much information, but I had traveled to many other countries like Thailand, Italy, Guatemala, England, France, China, and I was pretty confident of my abilities. To help with your planning, I'm going to be sharing my itinerary for the trip along with several recommendations for things to do and see along the way. First, I'm going to outline my itinerary and then go more in depth into each item. This way you can get a quick grasp of my trip and then go into the section that interests you most. The first thing I did was I flew from New York City to Miami to San Salvador. I arrived at my Airbnb in El Tunco. I hung out for a bit, checked out some bars, and flew my drone. I then walked around El Tunco the next day, made a few vlogs, flew my drone more, swam, thought about surfing, got a massage, met a few people at bars. The third day, I then traveled via taxi to Costa del Sol, a white sand beach, and hung out at Hola Betos, a plush restaurant or resort. I also went to bars at night and just kind of relaxed and enjoyed the night air. My fourth day, I traveled via taxi to Santa Ana and checked into my next Airbnb. I checked out the town, walked around, and looked at some different shops. My fifth day, I went to the Cerro Verde National Park, the Tazuma Ruins, and Lago Cotapeque, or Lake Cotapeque. On my sixth day, I relaxed, I flew my drone, I hung out with people from my hostel. My seventh day, I traveled to Chitodo via taxi, got in a minor car crash, checked into my hotel, Casa del Abuela, explored the amazing view at the 1800 hotel which overlooks the lake there. On my eighth day, I traveled to La Reina Chalatenango to find my birth mother. I found her and it was a very emotional day. Pretty much the next day, my ninth day, I spent a lot of my day thinking, writing, and walking around Chitodo. I took some videos, I relaxed. I also checked my email and I worked for a little bit. On my 10th day, I traveled to San Salvador, checked into my Airbnb there, which was close to Plaza Futura. I tried to visit the Parish Dunjaro or the Rosario, but it was closed and other places around there were also closed. So I just kind of visited the National Palace, ate some good food, and hung out there. On the 11th day, I went to the mall, explored, got some work done, relaxed, and pretty much just prepared for my trip home. I did a lot in 10 days, and I took a taxi most places, which is expensive. I'm happy with the time I spent there and was able to do everything I wanted. If you want to check out the vlogs of the various places I went, you can go into my YouTube channel and you can see that. So I'm going to link to a blog post where I pretty much broke down all of the different expenses that I had for this trip. Things from including the taxis I took, the things like travel insurance, my flight costs, my Airbnbs, etc. You can see all of the expenses broken down. About a lot of my costs, I'd say a third to a fourth, were from taxis. I could have totally cut this down a lot by just renting a car or by using a bus system in El Salvador. Since my Spanish isn't very good and I didn't know where I was going, I used the taxis. I also want to get a sense of the country by talking to the taxi drivers. I didn't really care about the cost, but for budget-friendly travelers, that can seem like a lot. I want to underscore that I definitely could have saved a ton more money. I was just kind of splurging, and also I wanted to feel safe. If you want to, you can stay in hostels for a ridiculously low cost. You can use the bus system and only eat local food. It would keep your expenses very, very low. El Tunco. When I was researching El Tunco, a lot of people were telling me that it was a party town, a great place to go for bars, to mingle. What I found out was pretty much no one was there from Monday to Thursday, and that the best nights were Friday and Saturday when the locals come to town. I wish I knew this going in because I would have spent another day there. So if you're in that scene or just want something to do, keep that in mind. Regardless, it's a beautiful town, very safe, and you can enjoy the beautiful weather. My best tip would be to get out of your shell a bit and to have some spontaneous conversations with other backpackers. I ended up talking with a bunch of people at bars, and throughout my trip, it made the experience a whole lot better. Costa del Sol. Costa del Sol was one of my favorite parts of the trip because I love the beach. El Tunco is more of a rocky, black sand beach with rough waves. Costa del Sol is a white sand beach with beautiful waves. The water is super warm. The beach is about an hour from El Tunco. You're going to need a car to get there or hire a taxi. When I went, I first didn't know where to go because there are all these ranches with big walls in front of them guarding the beach. I ended up asking my Airbnb host and they told me to go to Hola Betos, this epic restaurant that has anything and everything you could want. If you want more of a resort-style beach experience, go to Hola Betos. My kind of life. Don't get me wrong, I also like local culture, but sometimes I just want to chill like a lazy American I am and relax on the beach. Hola Betos is the perfect place if this is the kind of vision you have at the beach. Santa Ana. Santa Ana was the next city on my list and about 2 hours from El Tunco. If I remember correctly, it's a small town with a beautiful cathedral in the center. Nearby are Lago Cotopeque and the Cerro Verde National Park. I stayed at a small hostel with some other foreigners called Pool House. It was a very nice hostel and I recommend staying there if you can. It was also very affordable. As long as you stay in the center of the city, Santa Ana is pretty safe. There are also American-style restaurants even, which naturally are a bit more expensive. This town is nice to visit because of its proximity to some of the other cool stuff that you can do. For example, about 30 minutes away from the city is this waterfall that I checked out with a group from my hostel. It was so much fun. Not only was the water super warm, but our local person also assured us that you could also dive from the cliffs. It was scary, but I did some cliff jumping. Great experience. I would totally recommend it. National Park Cerro Verde, Lago Cotopeque, and Tazamal Ruins. While I was at Santa Ana, I booked a tour to take me to the National Park Cerro Verde and some other spots. I totally recommend it. They spoke very good English, and my guide also had a lot of knowledge of the history of the region. Lago Cotopeque was an incredible lake with beautiful views. I had a beer with some food there. You can also go on the boat if you want or even swim. If I had brought my swim trunks, I probably would have gone swimming. Finally, the Tazamal Mayan ruins were pretty cool to see. This guide gave me a whole history tour and explained the cultural significance. It was kind of weird to see bits of obsidian glass and pottery. This made me want to visit other ancient sites, which I may do when I return. One of the reasons I decided to choose this tour company was because due to their ratings on TripAdvisor. I also wanted to invest a bit with them because I was going to use them to help me find my birth mother when I visited Chalatenango. I can link up the tour company down below. Chitodo. Next on my list was Chitodo. It was primarily going to be this town because I knew it was close to the location of my birth mother. Chitodo is a small, safe, friendly town that has a handful of bars, shops, and restaurants. Along with being a quaint town, it also is located super close to another majestic lake. Now, I swear, this entire country is just filled with beauty. While there, I stayed at Casa de la Abuela, which is a small hotel right by the center of town. It also had a neat cafe and souvenir shop connected to it. If you want to see a breathtaking view, go and check out Casa 1800 Chitodo, which isn't a far walk. It's literally wow. Like, you can stay there also, or you can just grab a beer and have some food. This place is heaven on earth. I would totally come back just for that view. I loved it. You might not remember, but the main reason I was traveling to El Salvador was to find my birth mother. So if you want to visit more of an authentic town, I can tell you a little bit about where I was born. La Reina, Chalatenango. La Reina is a small but beautiful town in a valley surrounded by mountains. When I was there's this big festival going on and it looked like a lot of fun. You probably want to have a local with you or at the very least be very fluent in Spanish if you plan to go. It was a rural town, but people were very nice and peaceful. You can get a sense of what true culture is like. I ended up passing a photo of me when I was little and my birth mother out in the town until I was able to get some info on her. We were able to locate her house and eventually I found her. I also discovered I have a brother and 2 sisters. She lived in a very small house farther from the town. It was a very humble living space. It was also pretty cool to get the chance to meet my brother. He had been wanting to meet me for a long time and also made several attempts to get in contact with me. After visiting La Reina, I felt so happy and thankful I couldn't ask for anything more, but I had a few days left in my trip. I was going to visit San Salvador and get a sense of the capital of El Salvador. I was a little bit nervous because I had heard some bad things about the capital city, and you have to be hyper vigilant when traveling there. San Salvador. Since I had heard some horror stories, I was a bit more on edge when visiting the capital. I decided to go for more of an upscale Airbnb at $80 per night, and that was only a few blocks from Plaza Futura. It had a pretty sick roof. The interior space was also very nicely designed. For that price, I got 3 bedrooms, a kitchen, a nice living area. The TV also had Netflix. Wi-Fi was also pretty good. There wasn't much to do in San Salvador for me though. I checked out Plaza Futura, the mall. I tried to go to the one beautiful Rosario Parish, but it wasn't open. My suggested itinerary changes. There are a few changes that I would make to my itinerary that I created. First of all, if you want to go to El Tunco, which is a surfing town, then I would plan to be there for Friday and Saturday night, as that's when it's most alive. Nothing wrong with getting there during the week, there just won't be as many locals. Second, I regret not going to Ruta de las Flores. I've heard that it's a very beautiful and something you gotta do. Unfortunately, I couldn't fit it into my packed 10-day trip and also have some time to relax. Third, I would have hiked up the Cerro Verde volcano or another one. I wasn't able because I was trying to lift a lot of other things that day, and if you like hiking, I think that could be a lot of fun. Finally, I would have spent more time learning about El Salvadorian culture in the way of food, industry, coffee, etc. Gotta be honest, I wasn't that interested in it before I arrived, but I found learning about that history to actually be pretty cool. If you have 10 days, you can fit in a lot. It really depends on the pace that you want to go through it all. I was pretty happy with my pace because I didn't like to feel rushed. Costs and accommodation. The cost of everything is pretty low. You can get a pretty standard meal from $2 to $5 depending on what you eat. Local food is obviously much cheaper. If you eat out at American places, you'll be paying relatively lower prices, though I live in New York City, so I'm biased. If you're staying at a hostel, the prices will be dirt cheap. Think like $5 to $10 per day. Hotels and Airbnbs will be much more expensive. Think $30 to $50 or $70 to $100 in the upper tier. I had an Airbnb in San Salvador that was pretty epic. I had a rooftop, I had 4 rooms to myself, Netflix, Wi-Fi, great couch, and pure luxury, and it was $80 per night. Overall, if you want to travel cheap, it will be very easy to. This was just my first time visiting the country. I didn't necessarily feel that safe. I was also traveling alone, so I splurged a little bit on my accommodations. Hope you enjoyed this YouTube video. I love traveling. If you also love traveling, you want to hear more about different cool destinations around the world and also some tips I have for you on that front, be sure to hit that subscribe button, leave a comment down below if you have any comments or questions. And finally, I would love it if you could share this video with someone else who's thinking of going to El Salvador or should go to El Salvador. That's the only way we're going to drum up some more tourism about the region, is if we start to talk about this and we start to share. So I appreciate that so much. Again, my name is Salvador Briggman. Thank you for listening to this video, and I will see you next time.